Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Publishers Weekly U.S. Book Show. My name is Taylor McBroom. I'm the marketing specialist at H&H Books for Young Readers. I'm so delighted to be hosting this chat with Beth Ferry and Tom Lichtenheld, the author and illustrator of Stick and Stone, Best Friends Forever. Just a few housekeeping items. Please note that this chat is being recorded, and don't hesitate to ask any questions in the Q&A. We will leave time at the end to go through them. Now on to a few introductions. Beth Ferry is the author of numerous picture books, including Stick and Stone, 10 Rules of the Birthday Wish, and Swash Be in the Sea. She lives by the beach in New Jersey, where she finds inspiration in the salty air. In addition to writing picture books, Beth also writes graphic novels for emerging readers, including a few about her favorite characters, Stick and Stone. Tom Lichtenheld makes books for children and people who used to be children. He's been fortunate to work with many talented writers, editors, and publishers who have helped him enjoy the best job in the whole wide world. In his spare time, he likes to ride his bike, eat chocolate, and get other people's kids all wound up, then send them home. Beth and Tom are joined by their fantastic editor, Kate O'Sullivan, who is a senior executive editor at H&H Books for Young Readers and has worked on many wonderful books throughout her career. Beth, Tom, and Kate, please take it away.
Thanks, Taylor. Again, I'm Kate, and I've been lucky enough to have worked with Beth and Tom for, I think, about 6 or 7 years now. And our first collaboration was the original Stick and Stone. So just super thrilled to be able to introduce you to the new one, Stick and Stone, Best Friends Forever. Like the first book, this one is just a pitch perfect read aloud. Beth, you've chosen such fun, crisp word choices that, I think read like the best of poetry. And then Tom, you've taken art to the next level, especially those trees. You guys are in for a treat. I think you'll find that there's just a super, super high level of artistry in both words and pictures, really working on every page here. I also love that this new one is another book about friendship and all the ways that friends really enrich our lives and make them better. But in the new story, as Stick searches for his family tree, the narrative really just becomes this beautiful ode to unconventional, or rather unconditional love, and all the different ways, families are made. So I might be a biased editor, but I do think that Stick and Stone, they belong right alongside duos like Frog and Toad, Snoopy and Woodstock, Elephant and Piggy, and lots of other best buddy duos. So as you can tell, I am Stick and Stone's best and biggest fan. Ditto when it comes to Beth and Tom. So I'm really excited to get started and learn a little bit about this new book. So Beth, I thought we would start with you. And can you tell us a little bit about how this new book is different from the first one?
Sure. Yes, I'm delighted to be talking about Stick and Stone because, every time I'm asked like, oh, what's your favorite book that you've ever written? I truly, and I love, you love all the books that you've written, but I always answer Stick and Stone because it just, I think it's the simplicity and the art and the story that it tells. I just think everyone can relate to. So yeah, for the new story, it's funny because it's such the epitome of a friendship book, and the idea was, sticking up for a friend. And so really the whole first book revolved around finding a friend by sticking up for someone that you don't even know, and that cemented their friendship. And so in the new book, they are friends, that story has been established. And then when you think about your friends and how, your friends can last a lifetime, they do become your family. And I think they both, it doesn't start off that way, that they both realize this. They've been friends now for 6 years. But in their world, they are best friends. But when Stick is looking for his family tree, he doesn't think about Stone yet as his family, and he's searching, and they're having this adventure together, and they're getting scared, which I love how they're scared together, because Tom makes their eyes so expressive. But I think sometimes, yeah, it's like something that's right in front of you that you don't see, and you take it for granted so often that, the people that surround you, who are your friends and even coworkers, the people that are with you all the time. And when they realize at the end that they are each other's family, it's just an extension of the friendship story, because it's so common. I think every single person eventually, I think, maybe not the littlest kids, but the parents reading the story can all agree that, your friends and your neighbors and coworkers that you're with, and you go through all the highs and the lows with, become a sort of your family. And there's just something so gratifying about acknowledging that, that people who are not born into your family can very well, fill all the places of your heart. So
I love that. I think that's such a great reminder. And, I use the word lesson cautiously, but it's like a great thing to grow up knowing that you're surrounded with family beyond your immediate one. And I love knowing that they've been friends for 6 years now. Very sweet. So Beth, this next one is also for you. So obviously Stick and Stone was published in 2015. And can you tell us a little bit about what it was like just to return to them after a bit of a break?
Yeah. What's funny? I did return to them writing, but they have really been a part, no matter where I go and what I talk about and what book I'm promoting, it always comes back to Stick and Stone. So as much as I am returning to them in a new story, they never leave me. They're really a part of my daily life. Like, I think about Stick and Stone all the time, but to go back and actually give them a new adventure, was hard because, you feel like they have this very successful story. And so there's a little bit of pressure to write a story that can live up to the first one. And at first I didn't think that I could do it. I was like, I can't tell a story as good as the first one. But then when I actually, and I'm not sure exactly what made me think about, and it probably was a play on the words with a stick finding a tree is just so fun and silly. But when I really started to think about the poignancy of family, then it really was easy. It was like, oh, I'm going to just, they're on a search and they're going to just find each other at the end, even though they've been together through the whole thing. And they are beloved characters to me. And I, only imagine them as Tom draws them, because that's who they are. And they're, so yeah, I feel like it's that kind of funny thing where I did return because I haven't really been writing about them, but I've been reading them for years and years, and never, not once, do I go on a visit where I do not talk about Stick and Stone with kids. And I love that. So.
I love hearing those origins, especially the sort of like that wordplay moment, which I think you're so good at. And I agree. I cannot think of these two any differently than how Tom has conceived them. So Tom, I imagine that it was difficult to, give life to a humble stick and stone, but you do it with such grace and humor. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of that sort of characterization, or your illustrating process?
Yeah, there are challenges and there are opportunities, and the two of those things are really related and overlap. I would say the biggest challenge, and this is a fun challenge that Beth throws at me, is the spareness of her text and the descriptions she uses of action sometimes are a challenge to show for a stick, which is just a stick with a couple of little arms, and a stone, which is just an orb. And I'm going to go back to the first book to give you an example of that. So I always tease Beth about this, but so she wrote in the manuscript, "What's this? A huge puddle? Stick stuck in the muddle." So that's pretty easy. If you just have the words, you can visualize that pretty easily. The stick is stuck in the puddle. And then the next thing she wrote is, "Stone rescues him quick." So as I always say to Beth, easy for you to say. So I've got a stone, okay? Stone does not have appendages. Stone does not have much to work with. So I had to have Stone rescue Stick out of the puddle with whatever abilities he had. So I decided that his ability is he could roll down the hill hit a bump into a log, fly up in the air, cowabunga, and splash stick right out of the puddle. So that was a really fun challenge, and these books are full of those things, but they're also opportunities. For instance, in the new book, there's a line that says, "A friendship full grown." So I thought, okay, how am I going to visualize a friendship full grown? So I decided to play off the idea of growing, and I've got Stick up on top of Stone, and he's marking off on the door jamb as Stone grows and grows. So it's really fun to take this kind of spare, simple text and give it visuals that expand on it, such as the next page says, "They'll venture into the unknown." So I thought, okay, Stick's taking the lead here. He's going to have a big map on the wall, and he's going to chart out their path. And then he's going to have samples of all the possible trees that could be his family tree on them. So it's both a challenge and an opportunity to take Beth's text and visualize it. So that's really fun.
Oh, it's so great to see that. I do think that the best picture book texts, allow that space for an artist to fill in the blanks. And Beth and you have this great partnership, and she trusts you and leaves that elbow room for you to get really creative with, both the challenges and the opportunities. So
yeah, and sometimes it's the very spareness of the text that lets me do that. In other words, it doesn't describe all of the action. It just sets a scene, that is open-ended. This one says, "Sticks on a search for maple or birch." So, okay, they aren't, it says sticks on a search, but I can't have that. They haven't really begun their adventure yet. They haven't shoved off, in their adventure. So they're doing some preliminary research, and Stick is reading a book that's called "What Tree Is That?" So the two of them are studying various trees still at home.
well, speaking of research, when you were working on the book, what really surprised you as you researched and worked on the story? The art.
There were two things that surprised me. First of all, if there's ever a nonfiction part of a book, that's in a way the hardest part, because it's got to be real. So the end papers of this book show Stick with various leaves of various trees. So I had to do a pretty deep dive into trees and leaves, and your copy editor was very helpful in correcting my spelling, because some of these are funny names, and I had to get all the shapes right. And I discovered there's two ways to spell ginkgo, of the ginkgo tree.
Wow.
So this was kind of a little bit of academic work. I think the biggest surprise to me, just as an illustrator, and this seems very silly, but the biggest surprise was that I've drawn trees in many books before, and you know how on a tree the bark goes horizontally usually. Most trees, the bark is horizontal lines, right? So I've always drawn trees that way. And then I discovered that for some reason, trees actually look better if I make the drawing strokes horizontal instead of vertical. So those pencil strokes, that's done in pencil, those pencil strokes are actually going the opposite way of the bark really goes. But I discovered what that does is it actually gives the tree more volume, more shape. That tubular shape is better to get across with horizontal lines than vertical lines. I have no idea why that is. It's counterintuitive, but it works. And I also like drawing, knot holes in trees. So there's a good bit of those in here. So that was my biggest surprise. The trees should be drawn with horizontal lines, not vertical lines.
That feels like a big discovery.
It's the little things for illustrators.
Yeah, I just love that, you haven't figured out every book just because you've done the one book and you're continually making.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, this goes into a lot of new territory. I mean, the trees alone were, just a big opportunity, because Stick is looking at all these various trees. So I had to get out some tree books and look for all the different shapes and colors that trees have, which was really fun.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
All right, how are we doing on the clock? I have a couple more questions. So this is for you both. Is there a particular writer or illustrator who has had just the biggest impact on you creatively?
So
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, honestly, there's so many, as I know, there's so many amazing books. And I go to books for inspiration all the time, especially when I'm stuck. You're like, I'm going to read something that's perfect. And so when I was writing the first Stick and Stone, I originally was trying to write it, not in rhyme. So, and I wasn't really doing very well because it was so long. And so on my desk, the whole time that I was writing Stick and Stone, I had Little P by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. And, it's in no way like a similar plot, but it was the perfection of the brevity and the simplicity of the story that I used as reference. So anytime I was getting off track and describing, and, again, this is like my first book, right, ever. So I really, I was giving myself, like I was treating it like a job, which I think a lot of writers for so long, we write because we love it. But, writing as a job for a picture book is a different animal. And so I kept that book on my desk. And anytime I strayed and was going on and describing things that I looked at that book and I thought brevity and simplicity and perfection. And so, that book doesn't rhyme, but, I found that writing it in the rhyme let me keep to the brevity, like it let me tell the story in the briefest way possible. But yeah, that book to me, and her writing in general, the way she looks at the world or looked at the world is so beautiful. But that really helped me get Stick and Stone down to the story that I wanted to tell.
Well, A++. I mean, as discussed, you really shaped just, it's so fun to read. It's so fun to see it working with the art and the art in those spaces. Just first book, what?
Yeah.
Tom?
Crazy.
Well, what I love about Beth's description of using Little P as a benchmark is just that I tell students all the time that they should have benchmarks, but they shouldn't copy. In other words, I've got dozens and dozens of picture books that I look at, and many illustrators I admire, but I never copy anyone. I'll look at their books, I'll study their books. There's a book I admired so much, Clever Jack Takes a Cake. I sketched out the whole book just as an exercise, so I could have my hand take the same path that the illustrator's hand took, and I just put it on the wall, and then I was done with it. So I think it's important to have benchmark books. For me, I brought a stack of books, but I'm going to show you my desert island book. If I had only one book on a desert island, it would be All the World by Liz Garton Scanlon and Marla Frazee. And the reason I admire this book so much is that it's the whole package. It's got concept, it's got meaning, and the art is just stunning from page to page. And I, as an illustrator, I call this book All the Illustrations, because Marla can draw anything, and everything she draws here. If I need to know how to draw, a fruit stand or a car and do it artfully. The other thing that I love about Marla's work is the energy that she brings to everything, and the way she does that, it's just a bit of magic she does. Everything is done in sweeping strokes, sweep, even the sky, even where there are no black lines in the sky, but she uses these sweeping lines throughout the book. So the whole book just kind of moves and flows, and everything she does has that beautiful energy. So that would be my desert island book.
I love that book. I love her work. I wonder if she in turn is at all inspired by Virginia Lee Burton, maybe, in terms of those great sweeping shapes
yeah,
and the movement.
yeah,
but
I can see that.
Yeah, I love the soup that we're all working in.
Yeah.
Okay, so lastly, can you guys tell us anything about your next book after the new Stick and Stone?
Sure. Are you holding it?
We are working on a book called The Umbrella. And Beth and I, this was really fun to do because I had the nugget of an idea that I'd been, poking around at for years. And Beth, I showed it to Beth, and it wasn't going anywhere. It was just about a place where it always rained and everybody was sad. So that was it. It was called Sad City. I showed it to Beth, and she turned it into magic. So it's about a little girl who lives in this place, this imaginary place where it's always raining and everybody is sad all the time. Here's the kind of opening spread. Again, very beautiful spare language. Dreary, weary. Some kids waiting at the bus stop. So in this world, it's always raining. And this little girl discovers a beat up old umbrella in a junk shop. Here she is at the junk shop under the canopy. And she solves the world's problems with umbrellas.
I was like, don't say too much. But the twist, you just can't see it coming.
No, you can't see it coming. So this, by the way, is the dummy I'm working on the illustrations right now. So everything's in black and white.
Which is still so beautiful.
I know.
The black and white is so beautiful that I'm going to say you don't need the color, which is not true, but sometimes.
Well, it's going to have minimal color, which
Yeah.
was Kate's brilliant suggestion to
Was
add
it?
a little bit of.
I don't know. I think that was your idea.
No, I remember you said, how about a little purple shading?
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
earlier if you can look over Tom's right shoulder, there's the work in progress, and we were admiring it. Anyway, so Taylor, I think we're just about right on time. If there are any questions from the audience.
So I have a few additional questions. I would actually love to hear a bit more from you, Beth, about the kind of found family themes in Stick and Stone, Best Friends Forever, and why you decided that it was important to include that.
Yeah, I think, this is, I think you don't think of I don't know, you don't think about your friends as family immediately, especially when you're young, you have your family, you're living with your family. But then when you grow up and your family is a little more spread out and, you need something or you need help, you find that you can't always drive to the state that your family is in. And so, yeah, who do you rely on? And that idea, I think, especially, when I became a parent and I needed help, when you need someone to, in an emergency, pick up your kids. And so I think you start to realize as you, mature that, not every, you have lots of needs. We all have lots of needs, and not every one person can fill all those needs. And so, if you have a supportive family that lives close, like lucky you, and if you don't, you really do rely on your friends, and they do. Like when I think of my friends, I think of them as my family. I think that I couldn't imagine my life without them. And, it's like almost like this safety net. And isn't it great to know we all have that safety net? And if you aren't born into it, you can find it. And I just think, we're all kind of looking for security and safety and comfort in this world. And, your friends, and you want to be that friend too. And hopefully that's, the other small little thing that you can be that to someone else. Like you can have that and you can be that. And I feel like there's this great quote that says the best way to have a good friend is to be a good friend. And it's such an important lesson for kids. If they are a good friend, they'll have good friends, and those friends could very easily become their family. So.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And then Kate, you briefly mentioned Tom's art in the background, but I think that it would be great to get a little bit more information on maybe the process that's happening back there.
What are the pink tabs looking for?
Why do you like to look at it all at once? How does that help you?
Oh, it helps me a lot. It helps me for flow. At this stage, the pagination is done, but pagination is really important, and I just love doing it. When I paginate a book, I'll just have a big piece of paper with a bunch of boxes in it, and I'll start to move things around and cut them and paste them, and then when it's all settled, I do that, put on the board. But I can see graphically where if things are getting redundant from page to page. If I go circle, 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 that's a problem. If I go big, small, if I go big, 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 that's a problem. You got to, switch it up and keep some dynamics and variety going. So it helps with that. Truthfully, right now, logistically, that's just helping me get it done. So I can tell where I am and what needs to be done. I always start with the hardest illustrations first. So, do the worst first is the saying. So I've done the first.
Oh, now I'm so curious to know.
3 or 4. Well, hard just means busy. If there's a lot of stuff in it, that's a lot of work. So let's see what hard one I did so far. But it's really, right now, that board is just a device to get the thing done. And at some point I'll start to put dates on those. Like this one has to be done by June 10th, and this one has to be done by June 12th. Otherwise it doesn't get done. So here's one of the hard ones with all those people in it. And every person has to have some personality, and it's a lot of figure drawing that I'm not good at. It's got perspective, it's got rain, and it's got puddles, and there's just a lot going on there. So that's probably 3 or 4 days, of work right there, and I haven't even painted it yet. That's just
What's going to be the last page that you do?
The last one that I do, I always do the cover last, because what I discover is that in doing the interior of the book, sometimes it informs the cover in one way or another. Not a drastic change, but just some little nuance thing, so that I do it last so the color is truly representative of what's going on inside. So that's probably the last one that I'll do. So yeah, right now that's kind of a tool to make sure the darn thing gets done. Speaking of getting things done, I did want to show one thing that I talk about this a lot when I talk about making books. When I sketch out a book, I do tons of sketches, and then about 40% of it gets thrown away. But none of that is ever wasted. And here's an example. This is a sketch I did for the first Stick and Stone book. And this is the spread in that book that said, "They wander, explore." So I had them going over a tree and through some woods. Well, sure enough, when I got the manuscript for the second book, I was able to use that sketch for the second book, even though I didn't use it for the first book. I used something else. So none of these things that end up on the cutting room floor, many of them are not wasted. I just bring them back again.
It's just like, it's a huge puzzle on so many different levels. I mean, you're puzzling out the pagination and the order and timing. It's just do you like to do crossword puzzles?
I do crossword puzzles like crazy. I always have 3 going. And that's my favorite part of the development, the concepting with Beth, working out the ideas, doing the sketches, doing the pagination, working with you, Kate, to refine things. That's because it's collaborative and creative. That's probably my favorite part.
Thanks for sharing that little bit of creative background. It's always amazing to see how artists work. As you may have seen in the chat, Anna says that you both created such adorable characters. So I was wondering, Beth, you teased this a little bit in your bio, if there's anything that you can share about the future of Stick and Stone.
I would love to share this. So yeah, Stick and Stone are getting their own graphic novel where they kind of like go and have adventures with lots of dialogue. Which is funny because they are so spare and they don't really say very many things. So in the graphic novel, they kind of leave and they go on adventures. Like they go to the beach and they go inside a cave and they meet some humans. And yeah, it's like a big, departure from what they've done, but it's really fun and there's new characters. And yeah, I'm really, I love how it's just broadening their world and it's giving them, lots of fun things to do. So yeah, I think there'll be 2 graphic novels where they meet a dog. I mean, yeah, it's silly and fun, and it lets them, just go out and like be in the world instead of, their very tight stories in the picture books. So fun.
It's amazing. It sounds like it's going to be a really fun time. I can't wait to see those and see them out in the world, along with Stick and Stone Best Friends Forever, which is coming this fall. I did drop the link in the chat for anyone who wants more information. But thank you all so much for joining us today. This chat was fantastic. It has been recorded and will be available for future viewing. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Stay
everyone.
well.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Talk later.